So, this video is the video that I had been avoiding making for a very long time. But there's going to be a lot of people that are ultimately suspicious for good cause as far as my ulterior motives for the reason for this video, as well as divulging as much information as I'm divulging. Because ultimately, I do not want to run the risk of anyone else trying to write the narrative behind the situation that I am trying to ever so delicately try to navigate, while simultaneously understanding that it is so much more over my head than I even realized. But I also realized that I can't, with the details that just came out, I cannot take the risk of biting my tongue. Alright? So, a few details that I'm going to tell about my real life is, to some people, going to be surprising. To some people, it won't be surprising. To some people, they'll wonder what's motivating me to refuse to back down. Alright? So, some things in my past that I've experienced, that I have inspired, that have simultaneously made ripple effects throughout the entirety of my life. That ultimately, truth is stranger than fiction. Alright? So, a few real life things that if I never existed, would not exist right now. Alright? So, if I was never born, they would not exist. Alright. The Netflix series Metal Lords. The funny thing is, that whole situation, it ended up telling about a time that I was tricked by my old quote unquote best friend into performing a talent show. Keep in mind, we had just met. The funny thing is, we did a lot better than I thought we would, but simultaneously, it was just an utter disaster. The information that was not told to me, because I was tricked into it, was that number one, we were not supposed to be performing said talent show. Number two requirement of performing said talent show was, at least one person from the group being a student at said talent show, ironically enough. So, I'm performing this talent show. And keep in mind, we have practiced very little. We have gotten together to be able to practice very little. We had basically 2 or 3 weeks to be able to get it all together. We did. Ironically enough, there were some boos, some cheers, but did it, you know? Alright. Another one, though, because of, a little bit of a rumor. Alright? So the funny thing is, for anyone that has seen the movie Horns, starring Daniel Radcliffe, That was inspired by a really fucked up misunderstanding. So the funny thing is, if you remember in the movie, it's like, Horn's show when he's not wearing the cross, you know. Ironically enough, this is the cross that is symbolic of the cross from Horns. Alright. The album The Impossible Kid by Aesop Rock. Ironically enough, him making that album was to try to egg me on and punk the fuck out of me. Be like, nah, you gonna learn today. There's a process to this shit. Okay? And keep in mind too, you're gonna learn a thing or two about respect and opportunity. Alright? Apparently, I just recently got to learn that the individuals, some of the individuals I cohabitate with, as well as my breakdown, actually ended up inspiring quite a bit from Ice Nine Kills. So, the song The Shower Scene, ironically enough, too, honestly, I'd love to be able to perform with them sometime. Like, actually, like, I know it's weird, like, I'd love to be like, hey, I want you to know your band got me through a lot of fucked up shit, and you've actually helped me to not escalate to rise to violence to the point of completely and utterly blacking out and potentially killing people. You know? But ironically enough, after the truth came out about the false allegations that ended up being levied against me, and the factor that there was no, because of a evidence tampering factor, that ended up having me exonerated. Knowing that I didn't get a chance for a trial or be publicly announced that my name was cleared because of different government agencies wanting to see what information they could get out of me, what they could use me as bait for, how I could potentially help mitigate some damage of an insane situation. And overall, what I stumbled into. Alright? Ultimately, with what I had pointed out, as far as a paper trail that I found, Sheldon Whitehouse, the politician, and keep in mind he is actually one of the few politicians that have, throughout the entirety of his career, like, done everything he can for the people. Like, the true exemplary example of a public servant. Alright? He announced that the paper trail that I found, regardless of the factor that it was not clarified that I found it, is a $540 billion criminal enterprise. And ultimately, they actually use a lot of different media enterprises to launder money. Alright? There's a lot of tax evasion, a lot of drug money, a lot of money from proprietary real estate scams and, wire fraud. That all intermingle. And I had no idea that it was that large of a syndicate. So what I'm saying is, there are a few things that I'd like to go ahead and be as upfront about as possible. And from there, you can determine how you want to feel about me, or why I'm doing this, What's in it for me? I want my life back. Ultimately, what I'm staring down, it is so monumental and so much more bigger than me that ultimately, when I try to tell people on a constant basis, hey, if I go ahead and call a lame duck, don't question it, just duck. Alright? While simultaneously trying to move some people that have no idea the lengths that individuals that want to try to maintain anonymity throughout the entirety of the world, and the lengths that they would go to prevent from everything, that whole intricate story, all pulling together, that whole puzzle. I am publicly acknowledging this is so much bigger than me. I cannot continue forward alone without certain assurances, because of the factor that ultimately the amount of times that I have already risked my life, I risked life and limb for individuals that I owed no loyalty to. There are a lot of horror stories that involve me. There are a lot of people that look at me, and I am the real life incarnation of the monster movie trope that they have in their head because of a personal experience, because of a breakdown that I ended up having during a mental health episode. Well, there are other people that recognize me as the individual that has time and time and time again bent over backwards and damn near twisted myself into a pretzel, trying to do everything that I could to try to earn redemption in my own eyes. When people make those videos because, weaponized assault tactics, that first psychological warfare, clever. I'm a good sport about it. I give kudos. But something that needs to get acknowledged. If you look at me, if you literally look and see how much damage, alright? I literally look like I got a fucking slice of pizza right going through my skull. That right there, to some people, that's a warning. To some people, they do not understand that when I say that I've danced with death, and literally I'm probably the one person that has put myself in a situation that could cause life and limb and make it out alive with the right help. I'm not kidding. But I got a real nasty habit of walking into situations that are a powder keg, to say the least. So I'm making this video so that way it's understood that should anything happen to me, or I disappear under mysterious circumstances, that ultimately this is the root of it. I think anybody in my position could understand why it would be in the public's best interest, or even the government's best interest, to go ahead and paint me out as a psychotic, divorced from reality, out-of-touch lunatic who's got a chip on their shoulder, got a grudge, hell-bent on revenge. And the reality is, I have done just as much good and just as much bad in my lifetime. I am trying to do what I can to be able to make sure that any accidental role I may have to play with this level of class warfare that goes so much deeper than most people could ever even imagine. That my reason why is because of the factor that ultimately I have acknowledged in certain factors that I am just as much of a slave to a system that does not view us as anything else other than collateral damage. Just as much as everyone else. Some people end up going ahead and holding that delusion their entire life. The illusion of safety. Some of us end up being seasoned by experience at different points and ages in life. What motivates me is the dreams of one day being able to have my own life. If you watch the movie Love Stinks, imagine somebody doing that to you. Basically, trying to Truman Show you and trying to weave just everything right together so that way at the right moment they could go ahead and try to use you just to the extent that it benefits them just enough and then discard you. But if they don't discard you by killing you, every bit of power that they've ever accrued, it's all on the line. There is nothing that scares the powerful more than knowing the factor that their power has an Achilles heel. So that being said, my pleas for help, it's not out of selfishness. I do expect to be able to gain what I need to be able to have my own life and to be able to live my own life on my own terms, because I am tired of being treated like I am being unreasonable by asking for the freedom and liberty to have the decision-making capability and capacity in my own life, in my own existence, while simultaneously being treated like I should be ashamed of myself for my one true desire being to be able to live life on my own terms within the confines of societal understanding, that I do what I can to be able to follow what laws that I can. Anytime that I've ever even accidentally broke a law, there has always been a motive to my madness that ultimately, if I didn't make the split-second decision that I did, there are literally people that their entire existence, whether they like to admit that they know me or not, that their existence, even today, continues on because of even a chance encounter that ultimately ended up changing the trajectory of their life and ended up pulling them out of a life or death situation that they didn't even understand that they were in. Oh, there's some people in this world that no matter what, they need an enemy. They need a scapegoat, they need a fall guy, they need an enemy. And to those people, I'm never afraid to be like, hey, I'm not afraid to be that. But I just want you to understand something. It only has to be like this because you decided that it had to be like this. Who said that it ever had to? So that being said, there is so many more things that I've done in my life and I've inspired in my life, and even things that I had solved that I did not dream fathomable. And the reason that I had been able to do that is because in my life, I had been willing to take risk and chances that in the heat of the moment, most people from the sidelines are thinking, what the fuck has gotten into this one? And looked and didn't look before I leaped. But then, literally in the midst of the chaos, I ended up saying, all right, if you really need that enemy, if you really need that adversary, understand something. I will be more ruthless, relentless, and overall, I could even be more vindictive and vicious than anyone or anything that you have ever encountered. But understand, if that version of me is coming out, if that's the version of me that you're requesting, understand, I accept that version, but I don't like that version. I don't ever like being in that version. So when I tell people that I battle with my inner demons every day, I am not even kidding. That being said, everybody's going to come to the judgments that they want to. But ultimately, there are certain things that can't be let go. And understand, if somebody is willing to go ahead and be willing to try to figure out the best way to be able to oppose a $540 billion criminal enterprise, understanding that without assistance, I am outmanned, outgunned, outmaneuvered at every single corner and every single second. That I end up going ahead and refusing to let this go. There's just one more opportunity to go and by any means necessary do what needs to be done for people that could not operate on a day-to-day basis in the real world if they were to be just as straightforward as I am being right now. Because ultimately, I am a rare breed of people that have said and have fully understood for a long time, not everyone's going to like me. I don't expect everyone to like me. Ultimately, the little side effects from, that whole situation, yeah, I don't even like them. But guess what? You get to get away from them. I don't. And ultimately, once people understand that, it becomes a little easier to find a little bit of maneuvering room. Especially because if you were to wait out everything that I've ever done in my life, sum up the entirety of my existence, and put it on a balance beam, and try to balance out good deeds, bad choices, acting on impulse, not fighting urges that ultimately, if I were to ever crack, make me more afraid of me than most people that have ever seen me truly at my darkest moments and my worst would end up saying. I didn't believe that true evil was possible until I met you. But the more that I've sat back and listened and tried diving into your psyche, with you being as forthright as you've been, I have never met a more determined individual in my existence throughout the entirety of my life, regardless of age. Commendable. But at the same time, I'll never be able to unsee what I saw. And I don't ever think I will ever be able to trust any of the motives or intentions for anything that gravitates anywhere around you. And to the naysayers, I say, I can't blame you. Like I said, you get to get away from it. You don't like what you hear, you get to change the video. You don't like the way that me being as forthcoming and truthful as I am, even including on things that ultimately I should be absolutely just ashamed that I ended up walking into. But they were situations that I was lied to, tricked, walked into, and all of it being a means to an end. So that way people that end up going ahead and being part of that $540 billion criminal enterprise could potentially maintain whatever grip on whatever power that they still can, because of the fact that they have true understanding how much their days are numbered. If I wasn't alive right now, it would be a lot more difficult to be able to string that cork board together. I am risking so much, especially because of the factor that willingly, knowingly, that whole enterprise, I had never been a willing participant in. Understand, though, willingly and knowingly, and being coerced into a situation of self-preservation, not even understanding everything that led up to that chain of events. Yeah. I've been taken aback by it and taken by surprise more times than anybody can even count. So it's not even a getting one over on me. It's literally, this is so much more over my head than I ever imagined. I need anybody that believes that somebody that's willing to put everything on the line to try to help get that taken down. Yeah. I need you to go ahead and determine if you think that I'm worth the help or not. And if you think that I am, understanding exactly what I'm trying to face off against. Every bit of help helps. And no, I'm not talking monetary and financially. I am talking about actual manpower, woman power, everyone that actually believes in standing for something. Even if your own motivation is, I know what I've done at the darkest moments and the closet skeletons at the weakest points of my existence. I thought I was past redemption. This right here may end up being that one. That no matter what, even if I fail, failure is understandable considering that big of a gargantuan nemesis, basically. And we're not even talking about a nemesis. We're talking about an enterprise and a syndicate that ultimately some of the most base urges and desires and literally people that could go ahead and make or break everything, just bend the fabric of society around their entire finger and not give it a second thought. Literally just say the word, and your existence is just phased out. That being said, this for me is that anyone in their right mind would be telling me don't be a hero moment. And for me, this is that I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm trying to just get some unresolved issues resolved that a lot of people in power that do not want me to be capable of even doing so would do anything possible to prevent any likelihood of success. This is that clause that I believe in. This is what I could say I, with every bit of my existence, would be able to stand behind. For anybody that wants to hold me to the standards of everything that I had to grow past, every horrible moment. Because at my worst, there have been some situations that it's a mutually unspoken agreement that some people and me will never be in the same room again. But it's not because of the factor of needing to, in one way or another, exert superiority. It's literally because of the factor that our causes, they just don't align. And that's okay. They've got their own battles to deal with. But just like they've got their own battles to deal with, I have my own battles that I can't ignore. So, that being said, if this video doesn't explain the motive to my madness, I don't know what does. So, my name is Matthew Evan Valenciano. I made this video in sound mind of my own fruition. Should anything happen to me, I would like this to be considered as a video version of my last will and testament. I would like to make sure that everyone that has ever considered me a friend, whatever can be done possible to get this video to them. And anyone that's ever considered me a true loved one, that it makes their way to them. Sending it out into the ether, putting it on a YouTube video. So that way that whatever story ends up getting made up to try to control the narrative, that this video right here actually ends up going ahead and telling the true motivations. So, that being said, take what you will from this.